Welcome back to Tracy Take Tuesday. My name's Tyler here with my brother Ryan. And I know this video is coming out on a Wednesday. We had to postpone this for one day. And luckily for us, a lot of major things have come out today that has affected Ryan's mock draft. So this is going to be a brand new one that he's made within the moment here, actually. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Before we get into that, be sure to do all the YouTube things that everybody says: subscribe, like, comment, tackle the bell. And Ryan, let's pull up your mock draft
Let's
here.
do
I'm
it.
very curious to see how you go about this with the major news of two of the first four teams. And actually, we can actually even start off with the news with Tennessee. So
Yeah.
GMs and front office looks really impressed with Cam Ward after his pro day.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the major thing going around right now is that Cam Ward is, draft wise, that Cam Ward is going to be the first overall pick. I don't think that there was much doubt after the way free agency played out for them in our minds that Cam Ward was going to be the first overall pick. But just kind of hearing what happened at the pro day and how enamored the Tennessee Titans were with him and just how close of a look they really were taking, I think that is kind of a done deal. They don't really have to hide it. They control the draft there with the number one pick. But yeah, Cam Ward, fantastic football player. I don't know where he would have ranked in last year's class, somewhere between 4 and 7. But I definitely think he would have
Oh,
been.
in quarterbacks, you mean, right? Not picks.
Yeah, in quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got you now. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but I think he does a lot of really good things. He throws the ball into tight windows with good accuracy. He's definitely has that ad lib capabilities that you want. And so I think that the Tennessee Titans get their potential franchise quarterback there with the first overall pick. Here with the second pick, everybody has the Browns projected to take Abdul Carter. I mean, I could see it. That would definitely be a really formidable front there with Myles Garrett, Abdul Carter. But for me, what's really enticing here is actually going and getting Travis Hunter. He can help solidify that cornerback room. They have a good duo already with Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome as well. But I think there's potential for them to move on from Greg Newsome maybe after this season. They also need help in that wide receiver room. Travis Hunter can help in both spots. And I think Kevin Stefanski, good offensive mind, he could definitely come in and utilize Travis Hunter more specifically in offensive packages. And I do think that is where he will be at his best, primarily as a corner with 20 to 25 snaps on the offensive side of the ball a game. And I think that'll be probably the best situation for him. So Travis Hunter is going to be a Cleveland Brown here. And this to me is where things get interesting. Because if Travis Hunter were on the board, I think the Giants would be running up this ticket. They need corners. That would be an elite duo with Malik Neighbors and Travis Hunter at receiver when he's playing on offense. And so I think that would be the clear pick if he's on the board. However, they just traded for Brian Burns. They have Kayvon Thibodeau, who is going into a contract year, so maybe they could move on from him and take Abdul Carter as a replacement. But with that being said, I think you go look at this trade market and what they could potentially get for this pick. I think that's going to be really enticing. So I'm actually going to have the Chicago Bears come up with pick 10, 39 in a future second. And they're going to get back pick 3 and then this Dallas pick in 2026. So that should even out on the trade chart. But I think Chicago coming up, getting Abdul Carter, that could be the finishing piece for this offseason. They've gone out, they've addressed this interior of the offensive line. They have addressed some defensive positions. I think Caleb Williams getting Ben Johnson, that's going to be a really good thing for him as well. So going out and getting Abdul Carter, getting that elite edge rusher for the Bears, I think is just going to be the final piece for this team to really go and compete in that division. So this leaves New England in a pretty peculiar spot. They did just sign Stephon Diggs. That news broke probably about an hour and a half ago. And so I think that's going to be a really interesting situation. They now have 7 receivers under contract for 2025. How many of them are going to be playing at a elite level? That is yet to be seen. So I do think Ted McMillan could definitely be the pick here. That is not the route I went in this mock draft. I think the Patriots, they're going to look to kind of bolster up the trenches. They could go Will Campbell. One of the guys that I really like is Shamar Stewart, with his freaky athleticism. I think he could be a Trayvon Walker type riser later on in this draft process. But the guy I'm actually going to go with is going to be Armand Mimbu. And there's going to be a couple reasons why. One, You signed Morgan Moses. He can be that right tackle. You can maybe flip Armand Membu over to being a left tackle. On this channel, I'm the big proponent of it's really hard for tackles to flip sides. But I think with his athleticism and his just raw power and the fact that he's only 20 years old, I think gives him a more of an advantage in switching sides. The other thing is Morgan Moses is 34. I know they drafted Caden Wallace last year, late or early in the third round, but I think Armand Membu is a plug and play starting right tackle. So if needed, you have the depth on the offensive line there, and then maybe Caden Wallace can try to continue to learn how to be a left tackle, and then you have some depth there on the right side. But all in all, I think this is probably the best thing for this offense, is just to continue to strengthen this offensive line. Kind of getting back to, I guess, my regularly scheduled program here, Mason Graham going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just feel like they have such disruptive edge rushers that you put Mason Graham there in the middle on that defensive line. And I think that's just going to be able to wreak havoc on a lot of offensive lines, especially you look at like a lot of the changes that the Colts have made, the Texans within that division. I think getting a disruptive interior defensive lineman like Mason Graham is just a really good fit for that team. And then Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders still just makes so much sense. Pete Carroll once drafted Rashad Penny in the first round. And if you don't know who Rashad Penny is, that's probably a good thing. It was not a great pick, but Ashton Jeanty is a blue chip running back. Pete Carroll and the Seahawks administration that he was in showed that they would be willing to bet a high value draft pick on a running back. So I think Ashton Jeanty going to be a Las Vegas Raider. New York Jets, they kind of get screwed out of what I think would be the best pick for them, which is Armand Membu. And they could go a few different ways. I think Will Campbell is definitely an option. He definitely is probably the highest football character guy in this draft class. But with that being said, his physical limitations really concern me, and the Jets have invested a lot on the interior. So I don't know if it makes a lot of sense for them to kind of double down on a Will Campbell. Tyler Warren, they need tight ends in that building really bad. But I actually ended up just going with Tet McMillan. I feel like the complement between him, you have Garrett Wilson and his speed there. It just seems like a really good duo. The skill sets seem to really match up. And so I feel like Tet McMillan going to the Jets is going to be a good thing. Here, the last pick before I throw it over to you. This is actually where I have Jihad Campbell coming off the board. This is a guy that's been rising up my draft boards a little bit. He's the linebacker from Alabama. I do think, especially in their kind of 3-4 base, he could be an outside linebacker and be a really disruptive edge rusher and make that transition fairly smooth. But with that being said, if he just wants to play as a traditional linebacker, they definitely need that in that room. And he was the best one in this class by far. He can be your signal caller on defense. He's just a really good high IQ football player. And I think in Carolina, that's something that they really need in that defense. And this is a deep edge rushing class. They could definitely go and get another guy to kind of play outside linebacker, either opposite him or to address that need on its own later in this class. So Jihad Campbell going here to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, no, it's good so far. Let's start up at the top. We already talked a little bit about Tennessee and Cam Ward, but yeah, especially two as of right now. It's not a foregone conclusion that Cam Ward's going to go number one. Like I bet if Tennessee got an offer they couldn't refuse, I bet they'll move back and give that spot up. But that being said, it's going to have to be an amazing offer now. And Cleveland as well too. I think it seems like everybody's getting a little sour with Shador as well, just on his overall prospect level. And so I think them going Travis Hunter here, I think makes sense. The Chicago Bears trade I really like, especially too if you go and look at the moves that they've made where they've really beefed up the trenches on the offensive line. You go and bring in Grady Jarrett, who still has a lot left in the tank. You know, as an Atlanta Falcons fan, I think they're really going to like him up in Chicago. And I think you go and add Abdul Carter. I think it's worth that trade. He's one of those few blue chip prospects that you can go and get. And it makes sense, I think, too, for the Giants trading back as well, because one of the things I was thinking about while driving home from work today with the Russell Wilson news breaking is it's kind of potentially two options that the Giants feel are going to happen, but both of them which conclude in like Shador Sanders is not going to be the guy. Is not going to be drafted by the Giants in the first round. Is either they don't think he's going to pass Cleveland and Cleveland's going to draft him, or two, even if they like it doesn't matter what Cleveland does, they are just not high on his prospects and Brian Dable and Joe Shane are like, no, we're in a win now mode. So let's go get a
Yeah.
veteran quarterback here. And so if he's still there, maybe in the second round, maybe they go for him, or maybe late first round, like they'll try and trade up to see if they want to go and get him now with this new additional second round pick. I don't. That's an unintentional foreshadowing if that's what you end up doing. It's just you're
No,
smiling there,
no.
but then everything else though is kind of on brand, I think, on what we've said in the past. Amar Membu, I know you've talked about that a little bit. Mason Graham just makes sense, especially too that team hasn't done anything in free agency really with the defensive line at all, but they've done some things in the secondary. And then everything else kind of makes sense after that too. So far, it's with the news coming up, it kind of clears up a little bit of the uncertainty I feel up top, but everything's still falling into place through the first 8 picks.
Yeah. No, I mean, uh, like I think that this is a relatively realistic scenario. The honestly, the hardest one is my Patriots at 4. Like that's just they're in such a weird spot because there's no blue chip talent left for them. They're at the very top of the next tier. So like whoever I draft, I kind of feel like I'm reaching on, but that's a conversation for another day. Let's get back into this mock draft here. So the New Orleans Saints, one guy that I think is getting a lot of hate that I don't necessarily agree with is Luther Burden. That whole Missouri offense just kind of took a big step back. Brady Cook did not look very good in 2024. And so I think Luther Burden he's in a reliant position where he's relying on the quarterback to give him targets and give him the football. And I just think you go and look at what he was able to do when the ball actually got in his hands at Missouri. And I still feel like that same player that everybody fell in love with in 2023 is still there. So I think the Saints, they go and they get their possession receiver here in Luther Burden here at 9th overall. He's still my wide receiver too. Matthew Golden, whose name will be coming up shortly, is right on his heels. I think those are the clear top 3 receivers. You have Ted McMillan, Luther Burden, and Matthew Golden. But here with the Giants this is where I have Shedeur Sanders coming off the board. So not that I don't think the Giants don't like Shedeur Sanders. I just feel like they think 3 is too rich for Shedeur. And if they're able to move back with the Bears, acquire more capital to go and address more needs later, because this is a deeper draft as a whole. But
Sure.
I think then they can get Shedeur here. It feels like less of a risk. The Russell Wilson deal, the Jameis Winston deal was a 1 year and a 2-year deal. And so I think with some of the limitations and development that Shedeur might need, I think going and maybe making a move back and then taking him and kind of letting him fall to you is the better way to go. And then if he doesn't fall to you, then you could just kind of be like, well, we didn't really like him anyways. Like, they might like him. I don't think they love him. So I think the Giants getting Shedeur at 10 feels a lot better than taking him there at 3.
Fair.
So, and this is also coming from a guy who was pretty much throughout this entire draft process said that I'm not fully sold on Shedeur. So to still even have him going top 10 for me, I feel says a lot, just because I feel like the league is going to overvalue him simply because he's a quarterback. So
Yeah, makes sense.
I think he goes pretty early on. Here with the 49ers, I am going to take Will Campbell. If he's here, I doubt they pass on him. I mean, that would just be Kyle Shanahan type of guy. He's a great athlete. He just has those length and wingspan limitations that are really going to, I think, keep him from being successful at tackle. I think he might be able to get by, but if you're taking a guy in the first round, I really think you would prefer him not to just get by, but be a star at his position. And so I think Will Campbell there for San Francisco makes a lot of sense. I think that's a really good situation for him. Dallas Cowboys, this is where I have Matthew Golden coming off the board. It just makes a lot of sense. They need another wide receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb. Matthew Golden has been steadily rising up draft boards, and I just looking at what he was able to do, especially in some key moments for Texas. He's just a really solid football player, high football IQ player as well. And so getting him down there in Dallas, I think, is going to be a really good fit for him. We here with the Dolphins, I'm going to have Will Johnson come off the board. I don't quite understand the fall with Will Johnson because everybody knew that he had like the turf toe. Now maybe it's not getting better and that's like scaring teams off, but he's still like an elite shutdown outside corner when he's healthy. Throughout this entire process until about a month ago, Will Johnson was uh, a top 6-8 pick in almost every single mock draft. And now I've seen some mock drafts that have him falling all the way down to Tampa Bay at 19. Actually, I think our most recent 3-round mock draft, we had him fall that far. And so I feel like Will Johnson here to the Dolphins makes a lot of sense. They could also go Malachi Starks or another route there, but I think that one makes sense. And then another chalk pick here. I think Tyler Warren to the Colts. It still just makes so much sense if he's there for them to go that route. They need that inline playmaker. They have so many good weapons. I think that would really just kind of complete that room. He can stay on the field on all 3 downs. And then just imagine the athleticism. You have Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, Tyler Warren. A.D. Mitchell was really good last year in I would say limited role, but he played a decent bit. He just wasn't targeted nearly enough in my opinion. And especially too, you go watch what he did in like the early weeks of the season against Derek Stingley, who just got one of the biggest contracts in the NFL. Actually, no, he got the biggest contract for a corner in NFL history. And so you go watch what A.D. Mitchell did in week 1 to him. And I think that's pretty telling about his potential. Wrapping things up here before I throw it back over to you at the halfway point. So your Atlanta Falcons, this is where I have Mike Green coming off the board. I know I've done that pick a few times, but my big thing here is the Falcons, they don't have a whole lot of needs. Like they could get a center potentially like later in the draft. Like I think this is probably the ceiling for Gray Zabel if they want to take him there. But I think you look at like you have Jared Wilson, Seth McLaughlin, who unfortunately tore his Achilles, is going to be a day 3 pick. But he is a very good center. There's Jake Majors from Texas. There's Jonah Monheim, who had a decent Senior Bowl as well. Like there's a lot of options there in that offensive interior. And so I feel like going and getting a Mike Green who can just be that elite edge rusher for you and bring a lot of speed and power off the edge, I think is going to be something really important for your Falcons there. So last pick, going to have a little bit of a run on edge rushers here, but I'm going to go with James Pierce Jr. I just think he's going to fit that Jonathan Gannon system so well. You put him, Josh Sweat across from each other. That's a lot of speed. Both of those guys are underrated run defenders as well. And so I like the James Pierce Jr. fit here for the Arizona Cardinals.
I like it. Okay. Yeah, especially too with the Cardinals mixing it up. I feel like we just go Kenneth Grant all the time just because we just like him as a player and think he'd be great there in that system. So starting up with the 9th pick overall with Luther Burden. Yeah, I could see the Saints going in so many different directions. Heck, I mean, shoot, even with Shador Sanders falling there. They probably wouldn't do that because you have Spencer Rattler there. But at the same time, you never know. I get your logic for the Giants taking Shador Sanders there. My one thing with that is they've signed Russell Wilson and then they trade back here. So like in this scenario, to me, it's almost like they're putting all their chips in the middle as like we would need to do well this year based off even to what ownership has said, like we want to win this year. So they might almost go for a player that's going to be a higher impact player like in the moment. And to me, I think maybe that would be Tyler Warren. You go get that tight end. They don't really have too much of anything when it comes to the tight end position. Let me even double check in here too, because it does look like they have Chris Manhertz on the team who, according to PFF, ranked well. Yeah, so they signed him. They re-signed with them. But that also being said, though, too, he's not yak juggernaut or like touchdown juggernaut. You know what I mean? Like I think they can improve in the tight end position. I think Tyler Warren could be that as well. That being said, though, too, it's a very deep tight end class. So maybe they will address that in the beginning of the second round. So I think maybe they'd go after like a player who they think is going to be more impactful in that moment. And so, but that being said, though, to your point, they could maybe then have that safety net of like, hey, when or if we still have our jobs in 26, 27, we need to have that guy that we can kind of continue to build around. So I could see it going both ways. Everything else,
I agree.
Everything else makes sense to me for these final 16 points. What's your thought?
So with Shador there at 10, I agree. Like, yeah, maybe they could go with somebody that helps them win now. The other aspect of it is if they can show progress with Shador, like let's say like Russell Wilson plays 10 games and then Shador plays 7. If they can show progress with Shador, I feel like that makes it easier for them to pitch their jobs and be like, look, like I know that the wins and losses isn't exactly what you want, but Shadur's making progress. Like, don't stunt his development and give us one more go round at it. And I think that helps their case at the beginning of the 2026 league year. In just if they whether or not Brian Dable and Joe Schoen or Shane are back. So just getting back into things here, picking back up with the Cincinnati Bengals. This is actually, I know he's like my third or fourth fourth or fifth edge rusher come off the board, but this is actually my new edge too. His athletic testing was just absolutely ridiculous. He was the most athletic edge rusher that the combine has ever tested, and that includes like Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. Like, go think of any elite edge rusher in the NFL right now. Shamar Stewart athletically tested better. The reason I have him falling is I just feel like teams are going to be a little bit scared of his lack of production. He only has 4.5 sacks in the last 3 seasons. His pressure numbers are so much better. His pass rush win rate is so much better. And I just feel like you go and look at what he's actually doing at Texas A&M. He's playing a lot of contain. They didn't really let them pin their ears back very much at A&M, and so I feel like getting him in an NFL system where he can actually pin his ears back and really utilize his athleticism and physical gifts, I think is going to do him really well. And so whether they keep Trey Hendrickson or not, I do really like the Shamar Stewart pick here for the Bengals. And this is actually, I mentioned him for your Falcons, but this is actually where I'm going to have Gray Zabel come off the board. Dude is just going to be a phenomenal interior offensive lineman. I'm not sure if he'll ever be like a perennial all-pro, but what he was able to do at the Senior Bowl was so impressive given the jump in talent. You go look, he tested out decently well at the combine as well. You go watch him on tape, and you can tell he has that mentality that you want in an interior offensive lineman. He can play either guard spot, he can play center. And I just think he could fill a lot of holes there for Seattle on the interior. So Gray Zabel, you are a Seattle Seahawk. And then kind of continue the run on edge rushers here. Donovan Ezeraku, his pro day was the other day. All 32 teams were in attendance, and apparently he did really well in the interview portion. He did not work out. But Donovan Ezeraku, I think he's been a guy that's been on my radar since about midway through the college season. I really like him just because he came up as a good run defender. And that's rare for a guy that's 6'2", 247 pounds. Usually those guys get pushed around a lot, but he still has that speed and explosiveness off the edge that you want in a guy that size, with the capabilities to actually hold up for all 3 downs. And so I really like him here. I think Todd Bowles would love an outside linebacker with his skill set. And then here with the 20th pick with the Denver Broncos, another pick that I've made a ton, but just makes a lot of sense. You go look, Cortland Sutton wins down the field. Marvin Mims wins down the field. They don't really have a guy that is that true possession receiver. And all Emeka Egbuka did at Ohio State was catch first downs. I mean, the dude at one point, 2/3 of his catches were just for first downs alone. And I just think if you go give an efficient, I say that I use the term game managing quarterback in a good way here with Bo Nix, not in like he's a game manager. But I think you give Bo Nix in his game managing style where he's going to take what the defense gives him. He's going to make the right reads, and he's going to get the ball out quickly and accurately. I feel like Emeka Egbuka is the perfect receiver to put in that system, just because Emeka Egbuka is going to be right on time on those routes over the middle. He's not going to be late. He's not going to be early. And he's going to be consistent with his hands. And so I like the fit there with Emeka Egbuka just a lot. Next up here is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is where I went a little crazy with this pick, but I saw it in another mock draft, and it kind of made me go watch this player. And I was actually really impressed when I went and watched Jackson Dart. There are a lot of really high level over the middle throws in between coverage. He layers a lot of throws really well. And I think there's actually a decent bit of like developmental tools with him. He probably last year would have gone in the second round. There was that big gap between all the first 6. Like, he probably would have gone in the second round, I think. But this year, I do feel like his tools and what he brings to the table, I think he could potentially go in the first round. I think Pittsburgh takes a big swing on him here, just really out of necessity. He's going to come in. He's going to be Aaron Rodgers is most likely going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But he's going to be behind Aaron Rodgers for a year. And so hopefully that gives him the time to come in and develop and work out some of the Aaron throws that he's had while he was at Ole Miss. And the other thing I will say is you go look at that receiver room that they have. DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, then Calvin Austin and so on. But those are down the field ball winners. And Jackson Dart threw the ball down the field more than I think anybody else in this class. Maybe Kyle McCord had him beat in big time throws, but Jackson Dart, I think, it could be a potential riser at the quarterback position here, and he's going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wrapping up because I know you have comments on that one, but we're going to go with Colston Loveland. Jim Harbaugh is going to get another Michigan guy to come in and be similar to what I said about Emeka Egbuka. I feel like Colston Loveland can be that just at the tight end position. He was just so efficient as a pass catcher in one of the worst offenses in the Power 4 conferences there with Michigan. And so I think that's a really good just addition there. It's not a receiver, but it is a pass catcher. So I like that fit. Jahdae Barron has fallen this far. I feel like it's time to finally get him off the board. The Packers, they need secondary help. Jahdae Barron can fill in a variety of spots, whether it's in the slot, whether it's out wide, or even at like kind of free safety. I think he's going to bring a nice versatile skill set to the NFL team that he goes to. So Jahdae Barron going to the Packers. And then before I throw it over to you, we do have a bit of a trade or a quick trade here. So I'm really high on Amarian Hampton, and I feel like there's a team that really needs to just up the talent level on their offense. And so I'm going to have the Cleveland Browns trade up. This is going to be the Nick Chubb replacement, but it'll be pick 33 and 94 for pick 24. And it'll be and then Amarian Hampton is going to go to the Cleveland Browns, but I really like him. The dude's contact balance is just insane, and his ability to just bounce off guys is so impressive. And then even at, what was it, 6 foot 220, still ran a 4.47, and he's just a complete running back. He can catch out of the backfield, and he's super solid. And so I think the Browns go and they make a move to get another dynamic playmaker. So now that offense will have David Njoku, Amarian Hampton, Travis Hunter, Jerry Jeudy. They have, and then a few other guys there, Cedric Tillman. Like, they have a really, really good cast of skill position players. So let's get your thoughts here on these last 8 picks. I know that Gray Zabel pick to Seattle, you're really itching to talk about it.
Oh, no, I mean, I think it's interesting. I like your reasoning for all of them. Shamar Stewart to the Bengals makes sense, especially Gray Zabel as well to Seattle. Very controversial. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Donovan Ezraku, though, I think he fits that scheme. Emeka Egbuka is one we've made sense. Jackson Dart, I get the logic behind it. I can see it. It's especially too with Pittsburgh, if it's a position they feel they need to address. They've already used their second round pick on DK Metcalf. I just, as of right now, it does look like Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm trying to actually even think if there's any other availability. I mean,
Cleveland is the only team that is needs a quarterback, but they just traded for they traded for Kenny Pickett. They still have Deshaun Watson under contract. Like, they have other quarterbacks.
And I don't think that they'll be able to. One, Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to. He wants to go to a team that can contend, and Pittsburgh, I think, could absolutely do that. I'm even looking at it now too. You go look at this receiving room that Rodgers would be coming into. It'd be George Pickens on one side, DK Metcalf on the other. Arguably the best tight end he's ever had, and Pat Freiermuth as well. And this is where, to me, if Aaron Rodgers, and we are recording this Tuesday night, 3:25. So if this comes out tomorrow, it could seem like there's some more signings coming through. I really like Amarian Hampton in that backfield then in that weapons room, so to say, for Pittsburgh. And people are going to complain that Aaron Rodgers is going to be going there, because I understand Aaron Rodgers. I understand people's opinions of Aaron Rodgers. Or let me phrase it. I understand people have opinions of Aaron Rodgers. I'm not going to go into my opinions of it, because that's beside the point here. But from a football standpoint, last year, he actually had a pretty good year. Like, it started off slow, yes, And then there was a bunch of turmoil that was going on within the Jets organization that I don't think you can really blame on him, so to say. But you go look at his numbers comparative then to other quarterbacks in the league. And then now you go put him in this offensive system, which, and just this overall team system as well, with Mike Tomlin, one of the best head coaches in the league, in my opinion. You just go look at his long tenure, how great this defense is going to be. Offensive line is young and improving as well. You can make an argument in improvement on weapon. You can make an argument. I'm not saying I agree with it, but at minimum, it's probably comparable to what he had last year, I
Yeah.
would say. So really all he needs to do is be a game manager, and he was even a little bit more than that last year for the Jets when it comes to that offense, especially the second half of the season. So I think it'd be very interesting, and it kind of goes to more that if you're in that win now mode. And I also think too, just knowing how Pittsburgh has drafted running backs and how they've managed running backs, Amari Hampton, get him for 5 years. I think you take that. That's a minimum. He's a Najee Harris replacement, so you got 1,000-yard rusher each and every single year if he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I think that's. I just think that's just my thought process. That being said, though, with Amari Hampton, really like to trade up from Cleveland. So get that Nick Chubb replacement.
Yeah, no, and I like that move as well. I wanted to do something different. I feel like I've done Amari Hampton to the Steelers a couple times, but I do think people need to, like, I don't know about Tyler Shuck. He has some injury concerns, but like, I do think that there is going to be a market for teams on day 2, maybe even early day 1, where or sorry, late day 1, where maybe a quarterback gets taken higher than people
Oh
potentially
yeah, I'm
think.
sure there is.
So,
Yeah. Well, that's what we all
uh,
thought about Michael Penix last year as well.
yeah,
And then he got taken 8th overall. So I think the same could be said for Amari Hampton, like where a lot of people are getting him in the late first round. I could see, I mean, people were kind of shocked with the Jahmyr Gibbs pick. And I would say that turned out pretty well for Detroit, where they took him at 12th overall. So maybe Omari Hampton goes up higher as well. Because if you do go look at it with how kind of deep the top 100 is, if you're looking for trench guys on the trenches on both sides of the ball, there's going to be a lot of those guys late first round, second and third round that are going to be able to
yeah,
provide you quality minutes. So go get the few stud athletes on the offensive side of the ball as early as you can. That could maybe be a
yeah.
strategy for some of these teams.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. So I think this class is going to be really interesting to see just how many like defensive interior and offensive interior guys go early, well, in the first 3 rounds. So let's wrap it up here. The final 8 picks. Calvin Banks Jr. is still on the board. I think that the Texans, they make a move here and just go ahead and take him. That's going to be probably the biggest thing for them. I think in our 3-round mock draft, it's already come out, so I can say it. But I think we had them. They had 4 picks in the top 100, and I think 3 of them were on the offensive line. So maybe that's a little overkill, but they need to really address that offensive line. So Calvin Banks is going to be a Houston Texan. Here with the Los Angeles Rams. Sorry, let me scroll down. Another new name, I think, for me in the first round. This is definitely the highest I think I've had him taken, but we're going to go with Maxwell Hairston. Just athletically showed out at the combine. And then you go watch him on tape. Yes, he had a little bit of injury concerns, but natural instincts for the football, good in man coverage. And I feel like that's the missing link for this team, is just a aggressive lockdown corner. And so I feel like going and getting him, he has the athleticism to stay with just about anybody in the league. And his change of direction is really impressive. His linear speed, we saw 4.28. I really like what he brings to the table. So Maxwell Hairston is going to go to the Los Angeles Rams. Here with the Baltimore Ravens. So they lost Patrick McCarry. They did bring back Ronnie Stanley. I feel like that offensive line is going to need a little bit of rejuvenation. They got Roger Rosengarten, Tyler Linderbaum has been a really solid center for them. But going and let's just snag Tyler Booker here. He's the top interior offensive line on the alignment on the board. And so I feel like you just kind of plug and play, put him right there left guard, and let him go downhill and let Derrick Henry run behind him, because, man, he is a people mover. So Tyler Booker going there to the Ravens. All right, last 5 picks here. So this another quick run on edge rushers. So we're going to go with Nick Scorton, the other Texas A&M edge rusher. This was a guy that I really liked coming into the season. He was more of an outside linebacker at Purdue. He put on some weight this past offseason and played more of like a hand in the dirt edge rusher and really improved his ability against the run, but at the expense of some of his pass rush. With that being said, I have heard that he is working on losing some weight. He's working on getting some of that speed back. He has the nastiest spin move I might have ever seen on a defensive end. And I think he really could go higher. But he is just a little bit more of a projection just because this past season didn't perform super great. And so he is most likely going to stick probably to be in an edge rusher or like a hand in the dirt in the 4-3. So it is a bit of a projection. But with that being said, I think the upside is really big with him. So I like Nick Scorton a lot. And then Michael Williams, there's a lot of rumors that he didn't test out super well athletically at his pro day. But with that being said, the dude has some freakish measurements at 6'5", has just the longest arms. Like he looks like he would just doesn't work out. He just gets on it like a stretch machine and just stretches his arms. And so I think when he was playing and he was healthy, he was a really, really good run defender. He had some really good pass rush sets against some pretty good competition. And so I like what Michael Williams brings to the table. The Commanders take a swing on an edge rusher there. The Buffalo Bills, this is actually why I have Jalen Walker coming off the board. This isn't a guy I traditionally have in the first round. I like Jalen Walker. It's just he's an interesting projection because he's kind of been like a blitzing linebacker. So he doesn't have the best coverage tape that you could see in a linebacker, but then he also still plays linebacker, so he's not a full-time edge rusher or like a blitzer. And so then like he doesn't have like the most amount of development or like doesn't have the biggest pass rush toolkit that you would like. But I think putting him there in Buffalo, I think would be a really interesting landing spot for him, simply because he is after all that I said, he's a really good athlete. He's a smart football player. He knows where he is supposed to be at all times. And so I think you look like that linebacker room. They lost Tremaine Edmonds a couple off seasons ago. Matt Milano is getting older. I know they have, is it Terrell Bernard in there as well? But they have some young guys there. But I think Jalen Walker would come in and he could be the leader of that linebacker room. So Kansas City, Malachi Stark's going to go back-to-back Georgia defenders here. They lost Justin Reed in free agency. I know they have Jaden Hicks and then Brian Cook. But I think Malachi Starks, he can come in and he can be your strong safety. He can be your free safety. He can play over tight ends. He can play in the slot. Like he can really do kind of whatever you need him to do. And I think Steve Spagnuolo would love to have a guy like that on the back end of his defense. So I think that's a really solid fit. And then to wrap things up, a guy that I have not been super high on throughout this process, but am starting to come around on because I'm starting to see just his overall play strength, and that's Walter Nolan. I do think Walter Nolan is going to be the Milton Williams replacement for the Philadelphia Eagles. He is that smaller, more powerful defensive interior guy. He didn't have the most amount of production, so he had 6 sacks, but 3 of them came in the South Carolina game. And I'm not going to lie, I wasn't super impressed with his like pass rush arsenal. He kind of just was bigger, like stronger than everybody at times. And so he was just able to kind of walk guys back. And I think in Philadelphia, you have Jordan Davis, you have Jalen Carter. He can come in and be in that rotation and kind of learn some more pass rush moves from those guys and really grow and develop and reach his full potential in that system there in Philadelphia. So that is my 10th mock draft of this offseason. I can't believe it's been 10. I only have, I think, a couple more. And so it's been fun. Not a whole lot, I think, has really changed throughout my process. I mean, I feel like we're kind of rotating guys now between picks 12 and 32.
Well, and that's what, so there are guys in here who are going to be first round, like for sure, first round picks, like maybe definitely the top 11, like Shador most likely, like Tyler Warren, very most likely, Will Johnson as well. But then you do start to get even like Mike Green, James Pierce Jr., like technically, like I could see teams, like they'll probably be first rounders, but there's still no guarantee. And I'd say there's guys like that all the way then to guys who are probably ranking overall like 55th, 60th, that I could maybe see teams taking a flyer on like late first round because they just like the potential. They like what they see on tape, how they would fit their scheme.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unique about this draft overall. I am just realizing, 3 Georgia players going all in a row here, 29 through
Yeah.
31. So
Yeah.
ironically, right before Philadelphia, the league's like,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
more Georgia
Exactly.
players for you all. And so,
Yeah.
but as I said, like we already talked about Amari Hampton, he can maybe even go up higher. Maybe he doesn't even get drafted in the first round. Jahdae Barron, I think, is a unique one because maybe is he a little undersized for an outside corner when it comes to the NFL. Yes, but he also his experience though moving throughout the entire secondary could maybe bring up his value even more. Matthew Golden, we have him at 12, but I could also see him going like late first round, maybe even early second round if the Cowboys and other teams decide to go a different direction. That's just what's so unique about
Yeah.
this draft. And like all these players are good, but like last year's class was just like it was so blue chip, star studded. Because like the first guy that went, and we talked about this in the past. First guy that went like where it was kind of shaky, like maybe he was a first rounder was I would say Leatu Latu to the Colts. But even then, guys after that were like,
Yeah.
no, these are just great players that you're getting there.
Michael Penix, in my opinion, was probably the first one that was like, did not see that coming.
Didn't see it
But
coming, but now as a Falcons fan,
it,
seeing like
it
him play now, it makes sense why you
yeah.
are that aggressive at that
Well,
point.
it also came out too that the Falcons weren't nearly as confident in Kirk Cousins as the public was in his rehab and his ability to come back, and they were right in that. And so like look, hindsight being 2020, that one wasn't as much. But yeah, like, and not that last year's draft was boring because we got to watch a lot of blue chip guys come off the table. But with that being said, like this draft, I'm like 99% confident Cam Ward is going first overall. And then Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are going to go in the top 5. After that, I have no idea. Like within reason, I have no idea like who these teams are actually going to take because there's just not like a clear hierarchy of like who's better than who are teams going to value more than who. And like, so it's going to be a fun draft night because every pick is going to have us guessing at who's actually coming off the board.
Honestly, yeah, even like who are the Browns going to take? So like
Yeah.
Tennessee's probably going to go Cam Ward, but then after that, you're right. Like where are they going to go? So it's going to be fun. We're going to be live on draft night here on the Tracy Take, just like how we have every single year from when we started going back to the Trevor Lawrence draft. That's what I'm saying, the 2021 draft. So
Yeah.
it's
It'll
a
be our
fun,
4th
it's
or
a
5th.
tradition unlike any other post Masters on NFL draft night.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this first round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.